Hello, everyone. My name is Kimberly, and you are welcome to Passports Beyond Borders. In today's interview, we have an inspiring guest. She is a Cameroonian-born American young woman known as Eposi Litumbe. Eposi is multi-talented, and when I say multi-talented, I mean it. She's a scientist and an artist in the same package. By this, I mean she has a career in biotech, and at the same time, she is an actress, a scriptwriter, and a filmmaker. Eposi, Eposi is not only a beautiful Black woman, but she's also extremely funny. Her comedy skits on Instagram are one of the things I look forward to when I visit the app. You should go follow her too. Eposi throughout the years has been on a mission to change the negative representation of Africa through, her travels within the continent. You can see her work, Journey with Eposi, on YouTube. She recently released the pilot episode of her first TV series titled Mayflower, the series, and you can find this. You can find the pilot episode on Facebook, on her Facebook page and her YouTube channels. So today, as you listen to Eposi's story, you'll definitely be inspired to trust your process and your journey of becoming. But before we get into our conversation of today, I would like you to take a look at the trailer of Eposi's Mayflower. Take a look.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It's so good to have you on. I'm so glad you could come on. Thank you so much.
You.
Again. And I'm so proud of your work. I'm so proud of you, girl.
Thank you so much.
You're such a storyteller, and I see this in your comedy skits on your social media platform, and then now your movie. Have you always been a storyteller, or was there ever a time that you felt that there was a need to start telling stories?
I think I've always been a storyteller. Honestly, the earliest I can remember is honestly in primary school. So I went to, or what in the US is known as grade school. I, would write little stories, and, with my best friends, we'd write little comics, or we'd write little small booklets. One of the activities that I used to do with one of my absolute best friends when we were younger is we'd basically write dialogue. And that, because, it's like, well, you want to watch 90210, but you're in boarding school and you don't have access to TV in that moment. So what do? So you make one up. And so we spent a lot of time doing that. And that's how we entertained ourselves a lot of the time. And I remember it being so captivating. And I just wanted to stay in that world and build different characters, honestly, as early as 8. But when I was about 11, we had a competition at my school, a writing competition for short stories. And my team and I won 3rd place. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, like people can actually respond to some of the stories that I tell. And I feel like that's really cool. So I very much have always been a storyteller. I think it's always been more about what kind of stories do I want to tell and what medium do I want to use to tell those stories.
So how did you settle in on what kind of stories you wanted to tell? Because I see on your social media platform, you're more into comedy kind of things. Mm-hmm. And your movie is like a completely different thing. So how did you balance that, or how did you even come up with what kind of stories you wanted to tell?
So just to communicate clearly, it's not a movie, it's actually a television show. It's a television show and it's an episodic. So we started out, we actually made what we called the pilot last year, or we had it ready last year. And we had some creative differences, but also, we made the best, episode that we could, and I'm so proud of it. I was so grateful for everybody who decided to work with me on that, especially the director. She really blew me away with her time, her attention, and her care. But I think that, also like having limited resources can sometimes hinder your storytelling. So I went back to the drawing board and started to figure out, okay, how can we do this a little bit differently? And that's how we came up with the episode that I just put out more recently, the Ambition episode for Mayflower. Well, I started out as an actor in Atlanta. So after college, I was an actor, a professional stunt performer, and it was a really great experience, but I started to feel like there were not going to be a lot of opportunities for me. One, because I'm not well known, and it's not like I have this like secret network of people in the industry who, all have power, like can, movers and shakers who can like help me find different opportunities. And there are different ways that you can go about doing this. And this was all before Atlanta blew up as a film center. And I just remember thinking that even if I did have those opportunities, I started to realize as I was working on film sets that the role I wanted to play was a little bit different than what I originally thought. While I enjoy acting a lot and I have a lot of respect, it takes really a lot of talent, a lot of dedication, and just blind resolve to be an amazing actor. I really enjoy putting the pieces together. So that's usually between the producer and the director, and that's kind of where I found I would probably be the most effective, and that's where I felt like I wanted more opportunities in. So I looked around and I was like, well, the people who are doing it, they have a lot more capital, or they have a little bit more resources than I did at the time. And this was like right before the recession. So, that was when I moved from Atlanta to California. And I decided that I would, take a corporate job and build up some skills, some skill sets, build up, just try to learn as much as I possibly could, and then start and try from a place of understanding instead of just throwing a whole bunch of things at the wall and seeing what sticks. I wanted to be a little bit more strategic about the way I approached directing and producing, because generally speaking, to be able to do something like that, people have to trust your judgment. And I was like, I haven't done anything for anyone to trust my judgment.
Right.
And in the meantime, between my sister and I, we were traveling a little bit around the world, but then mostly just falling in love with the continent outside of Cameroon, because yes, I'd been to other places outside of Cameroon before that point, but I hadn't intentionally traveled to the continent of Africa, and that's what I wanted. I really wanted to spend time going to different countries that I'd read about, or people that I met from different places, but I'd never seen what their home cities looked like, and explore. And that's where my other project, Johnny with Eposi, was born, because I wanted to see, well, is documentary filmmaking the kind of storytelling that I want to make? Because any filmmaker will tell you, making a documentary and making a narrative film are not the same. Making a narrative film and making a television show are not the same. They're all different processes, similar skill sets, but very different in the way you create. And so I took those opportunities to try to figure out what works for me, what kind of stories do I want to tell, and what's the best medium. And so that's how I realized that storytelling in the form of television, short form television, was the way that I wanted to go. And also, as far as my social media platform is concerned and the skits, that's honestly, this is such a terrible time. This is a scary, scary time. It's awful for a lot of people because a lot of realities are coming to the surface, especially for if you are Black, if you are LGBTQ and a person of color and Black, or, a woman and Black. There are a lot of things coming to the surface that are really heavy and weigh on people a lot. And I think that when you're going through some really heavy times, it helps to just laugh. What's going on? Oh, you're awake. Finally. What happened? It's been 5 years. What? Well, Not very much has gone on. Donald Trump is president. I'm not joking. Also, there's a world pandemic, so
What?
we should probably wrap it up here and just head back to the house before we catch corona. Just put your mask on before we go. Nurse?
I thought I was going in for a simple brain procedure.
Well, we were going to ask Gifted Hands himself, Dr. Ben Carson, to do your surgery, but he's a little preoccupied. No, his job is very different. Yes, so we just had to wait it out. But yeah, at least you're here. You're fine. You're fine. She's fine, right? See, you're fine. You know, it helps to just, have something to be cheerful about. And that's where I'm coming from with my skits on social media. I'm just talking about things that I've chuckled about or that make me laugh. And so that's where that comes from. It cheers me up. And so my hope is that it'll cheer other people up.
Let's talk about your movie Mayflower. Like, what is the storyline? What is the movie about? And what do you want viewers to take out of that movie?
But the show is about my character Ainen and her friends who are workers at the restaurant and lounge called the Mayflower. And it is just about their journey of trying to achieve what they had perceived to be their American dreams. As the show goes on, though, it slowly transitions to my character Ainen's venture into corporate America and what it looks like, as a Black woman or as a Black woman of who's connected to her African heritage and trying to integrate and trying to get into that corporate world, and what it looks like when you just do not seem to fit in, and what code switching looks like from that perspective, and even learning that you might need to. So essentially, it's what does it practically look like when someone who looks like me is maybe working in the restaurant industry and decides, they want to do something else. With this particular character, she was actually a professional in a different country, and she came to the United States, but because her professional certificate didn't transfer, she's starting over and she's starting working at a restaurant, and that can be humbling. But that's the story for a lot of people. Maybe they have training as pharmacists, as physicians, as nurses, in other areas, in other places that they're from. And, they end up realizing that maybe they might need to go through several other hoops when they get to the United States to be able to practice what they were doing before. And in some situations, that's applicable and they're able to do that. And maybe they have the resources to. And then in other situations, it takes a little bit longer, or there are other barriers that they may not have foreseen. So I think that that's a very niche, it's very unique, but it's also very universal.
What's the community's response to your movie, to the series rather?
I'm making this independently. I'm doing this on my own, so I don't have an entire machine behind me with a marketing department and all these other things. I think I spent most of the last few years trying to figure out how to make an excellent television show. And I'm also now, as I'm continuing and I'm building that content, I'm also making the effort to also building a business behind it.
Right. And earlier you mentioned funding, and I know you're into biotech. You're a biotechnician.
I work in biotech, and I work in biotech in clinical research. So I work to help bring pharmaceuticals to the market. So if there's a disease that the company that I'm working with decides that they want to come up with a treatment plan with a drug for, I work for the sort of companies that work in clinical research or in human research to test and verify that drug actually does do what they're hoping that it's going to do, and then bring it to market so that it can help as many people as possible. So that's the space that I work in as my as my survival as my survival job. And with the work that I've done so far and everything I've been able to do so far, I actually work for my funding. I work and I save and I do as much as possible to build up as much as I can, and then that's what I use to produce and make these projects. Obviously that's not sustainable because it'll take 20 million years for me to come up with an entire season, but I had to start somewhere, and I felt like I needed to do something to demonstrate that I have the skill set that I'm trying to attract as many people to work with me for.
Right. So I would really like to commend you on your work because, like you mentioned, the work is so excellently done. The quality is top notch. So well done. You're very passionate about Africa and Cameroon in particular.
I am.
And that can be seen through your works. Well done, documented, all the documentaries you're doing. So excellently done. What can you say about the Cameroonian film industry? Like, what do you think about it, and why doesn't it like make a name for itself, or why doesn't it level up to, you know, the global stage?
I feel like the Cameroonian industry has been growing, actually. The Cameroonian film industry has been growing, and I've been seeing some amazing work come out of Cameroon. And when I say come out of Cameroon, I mean Cameroonians in Cameroon making films in Cameroon that are excellent. I've seen that. And off the top of my head, I'm thinking of Krista Eka. She's a Cameroonian actor who is stunningly beautiful, amazingly talented. And I saw her one of her films is called Bele. I was just on Facebook yesterday speaking with another Cameroonian filmmaker who was actually in Beyonce's Black is King. I just, we're all over the place. And I think that, as time goes on and as we grow individually as filmmakers and find our way, we can find a way to also come together. And that's another thing is that something that I have personally experienced is encouragement from other Cameroonian filmmakers in the work that I'm doing, because they also understand how difficult it is. And, we see each other, everybody's trying their best, everybody's doing the best that they can and encourage each other. And that's something that means the entire world. People used to make fun of Nollywood. People used to have jokes about movies that came out of Nigeria, like, oh, look at them, they're trying so hard and they can't even do it right and all that. And so when I hear that, the first thing that I caution people to do is you have to give people an opportunity to learn. You have to give people an opportunity to grow, because making film, television, or documentaries is very expensive, number one, and it takes real skill, and skill happens over time. Talent can come naturally, but if you don't nurture that talent, it doesn't eventually become a skill. Do you see what I'm saying? So it takes time. When you try something and you do something, you have to try a few times. Maybe you get this wrong this one time, or you get that wrong that one time, or maybe you did everything you could and it was great up until this one thing that could have been better. But until you make those mistakes, you're not going to grow. You see what I mean? So I feel like we watched movies come out of Nigeria in their time of growth, as they were learning, as they were getting better, until now you watch some Nigerian movies and they, even at the time when in their growth, those movies blew me away, because they still told stories. Yeah, sure, people would make fun, like, oh, in their village, but where else are you going to tell your stories from? You know what I mean? I think that there are a plethora of different experiences, no matter where you're from. Maybe they're based in a village, maybe they're based in a city, maybe they're based in a nice house, maybe they're based in a house that's not so nice. But the best storytelling, there's a level of truth to them. So if you're from a village and that's the story that you want to tell, and that's the story you're best equipped to tell your story so we can hear and we can laugh with you, or we can cry with you, or we can just sit. I think that when we are ready, as we continue to grow, we're really going to give the world something to look forward to.
Something really special. And
Yeah.
speaking about growth and learning,
Yeah.
it's important for the people or the community to be able to consume what they produce. And currently, it's a bit hard, or let me not say hard, but the people are not really consuming what they're producing with respect to movies and music and everything centered around the art. So
Yeah.
how do you think that we can engage, or how do you think that the community can be engaged, to consume what we produce as artists?
I don't know enough about that to speak too intelligently on it, but just based on my impression, I think that there might be a gap. There's some missing communication sometimes.
Speaking about Cameroon, what are your favorite things to do in Cameroon?
My favorite things to do in Cameroon. So I'll start off by saying, although when I fly into Douala, it's almost as if a blanket of humidity greets me as I come off the plane. And Douala can get so hot. I love the busyness of Douala. People seem to be trying to do something with their life and with their time, but my favorite is going to Boya because my favorite places are Boya and Limbe, mostly because the weather is a little bit more temperate. In Limbe, going to the black sand beaches, going to Sonora Beach Club. Most recently, it was wonderful to get to go to Bota Island. And it just reminded me about how on a job, a photography and film job, I joined my sister on. We went to Thailand, and people go from all around the world, and they go to Thailand to go look at these like beautiful islands jutting out of the ocean. And when we went to Bota Island, it struck me how it's the exact same thing. But I think because when something is yours and you're just so used to looking at it all the time, I hope that it doesn't take other people coming and seeing the value in what we have for us to value what we actually have.
Exactly.
Let us just not forget
The
Cameroonian
fish. The fish. The fish. The fish. Oh my
You have
God.
not eaten fish until you have gone to Down Beach.
Yes, until you've gone to
One
Cameroon.
auntie has sauced a fish for you,
Oh.
grilled it to perfection with plantain on the side.
Oh my God.
and
I think
sweet
I'm salivating. I'm starting to salivate right now.
You have not.
No, you've
You
not. That's the truth
With
about
one,
it.
and then with a cold Malta Guinness on the side. And then one fat bobolo. Oh, Jesus.
Wait, do you know what I'd rather have? I'd rather have
What?
one cold pamplemousse. Do you know when pamplemousse settles down your neck? Like after you
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
With me, there's always like, okay, which one do I want? It's always a rotation. Do I want pamplemousse? Do I want Malta Guinness? Or do I want grenadine? Either one. With the fish, miondo or bobolo, and plantain, whether the plantain is grilled or it's dodo, it's fried.
Mm.
My God. And I think, I always prepare myself, when I'm going to Cameroon, I care about health and fitness. That's something that's really important to me. I want to be a lifelong athlete. So for me, that's something that I prioritize. But when I'm going to Cameroon, all bets are off. I'm just going to accommodate and plan for 20 because I cannot see myself going to Cameroon and restricting my eating. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. You know what I mean? Because I can make food here and substitute and things like that. But Kwakoko Bible with palm oil and palm wine from Boya. Oh God!
And palm wine. Oh my God!
I'm just not gonna get that here. I'm just not. So I just budget for an extra. I'm like, well, I'll figure it out. I'll figure out what I'm going to do. And it's not because slim cost. It's not that. Like I mentioned before, being a lifelong athlete is a personal goal. Because in my old age, I want to be able to, go on be able to do adventurous things. I'm a very adventurous person, and I would really, and I would like to be able to do the sorts of things I enjoy doing well into my 80s and 90s. My grandfather in his 90s, was walking around, healthy, and, he did eventually get sick before he passed on, but I'd like to see that for myself. So that's why I talk about health and fitness. I look forward to a day when, we're able to rely on reliable leadership. But that's a story that, I'm not fully equipped to speak on right now. So I think that's where I'll leave my opinion.
So okay, let's travel to America. We're done with Cameroon. So let's go to America. So America and the world in general is dealing with a racial crisis. Okay.
Yeah.
So how has this particular issue of racism shaped your work and your thoughts, and how has that been channeled into your work, the work you do?
Well, America has been racist for a long time. So before I say anything else, I think that it's important to also point out that a lot of, before now, where you have the internet and you have the exchange of information more freely than previous decades before, a lot of the information that, at least from my perspective and my observations, a lot of Africans had of African Americans or Black people in America was very much shaped by American media. And American media had also been very racist for a long time. So what that created was a divide where people who are coming from Africa and coming to the United States and are not descendants of chattel slavery have animosity towards Black Americans or Americans of African descent whose ancestors were enslaved and who have been going through this discrimination for a long time. Now, let's set that aside and let's also address the reality that because of all of that oppression and the fight amongst African Americans and African American heroes for equality and for opportunity, that set the stage for Africans coming in to have opportunities for advancement. So on the one hand, you have a group of people who've been suffering for a really long time, who are vilified by almost everybody around them unjustly, including other people who look like them, and then setting a stage for you to come brand new and succeed. And then when that happened, it's like, well, see, I came here, I'm successful. You have been here for how long? Why is it taking you so long? I want to caution, I want to use this opportunity to really, really fight for people to sit down, learn, and listen. Because you are coming into a situation where you do not understand the context of what's going on around you, and then talking, not realizing that you are a beneficiary of other people. Like I stand, whatever little tiny success that I may have, I stand on people who have been fighting for decades. So I want to set that context to begin. And my personal experience, in spending a lot of time and building, because when I first came, some of my aunts were very adamant. They were like, don't hang out with African American girls because they don't care about family and all of these things. And I did, and I was like, I don't know who you got your information from, but what I see when I go to school is not what you are saying. And built my friendships and my life was altered significantly because of the community of African American women who rallied around me, in times of trouble, and who set me up to succeed. So I think that the most important thing is to really try to use this opportunity to talk about the need for Africans on the continent right now and Africans within the United States to please, make sure that as you walk into situations informed about what's been going on for a long time and how you benefit from that, and make sure that you are also fighting for the people who have been fighting for you for a long time. So let's start there with the internal, right? Before we now go to the external, where now it becomes an issue of that's intra-racial issues that I think
Wait, before we go to the external, okay,
yes, sure.
Africans from the continent, I've
Mhm.
heard this complaint time and time again. They complain that they face more discrimination from the African Americans than from the people, the external. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Mhm.
So, would you agree to that? And yeah, what can you say about that?
What I can say about that is everyone has different experiences, and your experiences are valid. I cannot speak on everyone's experiences. I can only speak on my personal experiences and what I am privy to and what I have been exposed to. I would not be surprised if that were the case, because if you are coming into a situation and you're coming into a situation with that mindset where you are looking down on other people, they're not going to be smiling at you. If your behavior is one of superiority, because you believe a lie, they're not going to dig to realize, oh, it's because this person believes a lie. Let me correct that. They're just going to look at you, take you at face value, and then they'll give you back what you are projecting, right? And I don't want to victim blame in the situations where people have genuinely been discriminated against or things like that, but you have to find common ground, and that takes time. So I would encourage that people allow and be open to building, even when things seem a little bit rough, and even when things don't seem like they might be going in the way that you want. Just put in the extra effort with the awareness that it might be a little bit rough at first, but we have a lot more in common than we don't. So intra-racial issues, that's my perspective on it. And really, I feel like you have to be open. You have to be open to being wrong. You have to be open to the possibility that maybe the way you've been looking at things may be biased, not by any fault of your own, but as an adult, it's your responsibility to try to grow in that. Interracial issues.
Yeah,
So like I said, that predates me being born. So that's been happening. So coming to the United States, I spent most of my life, like I said, in Atlanta, and then I spent quite a few years here in California. And my awareness about everything that was going on came obviously as a Black person living in the United States. We've been aware. What's happening now is that people are acknowledging what's already been happening for a long time. And let me be more specific, a lot of white people are acknowledging that, because I think when President Obama was president, a lot of people felt like we were living in a post-racial America. We have a Black president, clearly racism doesn't exist anymore. And they were all, and the Black crowd was just looking at them.
exactly.
Thank you for sharing, but based on what we're experiencing here, it's very much alive,
Yeah.
And I think that with President Trump and everything that's happening, it's like a visceral reaction of a country that is finally looking in the mirror and seeing who we really are. A lot of people often bring up Nazi Germany, etc. But you know what Germany did? Germany dealt with the issue. They teach what happened so that they do not repeat the same mistakes. If we didn't even acknowledge, if we have not yet as a country, as the United States, acknowledged that this thing that happened, yes, we acknowledge that it wasn't right, it wasn't unfair, but there needs to be a resolve. There needs to be reparations for the descendants of the people who dealt with that. Why are they paying for school? For schools they helped build? Why are there, I don't want to go too much into the details, because I am also very passionate about that, especially because the more time I spend here, the more like, I'm an empath, I'm an actor, I'm an artist. It very much influences my work.
That's amazing. And there's this issue of colorism, which is directly related, to this whole issue of racism and superiority, colonialism, all of that. So talk about your experience with colorism and how it has impacted you personally, because a lot of people struggle with this issue, they're not
Yeah.
comfortable in their own skin. So how have you been able to find, yourself, and how have you been just able to be comfortable with who you are in your own skin?
Yeah. Well, as a particularly melanated, dark-skinned girl, I when I was younger and I was obsessed with Disney movies, but I never really saw any of the women any princesses who looked like me, and I was like, but they're chiefs. Do they not have daughters? Where are the films that show us the chiefs and their daughters? And part of the reason that part of my dream as a filmmaker is to one day have the opportunity to make a film where, whether it's my daughter or my niece, can see herself reflected in a beautiful way. There's a lot of that right now. There has been more of that as I've gotten older, as I've grown. But I only hope that continues to get better. I only hope that continues to be the direction that we move in, just as people. But part of the reason that I have had this strong desire to be a filmmaker is I want to tell stories within Cameroon, within the continent of Africa, and tell these beautiful, just epic stories, but use Cameroonian landscape. I don't know if you've ever been to Bamenda, for example.
Yeah.
First time I went to Bamenda because one of my friends, a dear friend, Awa, who I've known my entire, I'm a few years older than she is, but her entire life, she was getting married. And that was the first time I was going to Bamenda. I remember going to Bamenda and feeling like, what am I doing with my life? Bamenda is one of the most beautiful places I have ever seen. And I have traveled the world. I haven't traveled everywhere in the world, so take that flavor. But when I tell you, I remember going to the top of, I went horseback riding and I went to the top of a hill in Bamenda, and all I could see was just landscape and these giant boulders just as far as the eye could see. And then I started looking up different landscapes in Cameroon, and I just remember like my imagination ran wild with all of the beautiful stories that you can tell. I want to make sure I answer your question about my personal confidence in being, or just my level of comfort with myself. My mother has a lot to do with that. My mother is a very beautiful, dark-skinned brown woman, and my entire life, my earliest memories of my mother is my mother sitting in her room with my dad, and her vanity had her perfumes, her makeup, and I always remember my mother making it a point to take care of herself. She just always, made it a point to present herself well, and she had 3 daughters, and that may have, maybe she was trying to teach us that, because all 3 of us, before you see somebody working around looking rough, you really try. So yes, did I get messages of, being fair, you get, there's certain privileges that you get that you may not as someone who's of a dark. Yes, those messages, I did get those. And, for a time in my life, I did internalize some of those. But then I think it was also counterbalanced with enough affirmations between my own self-affirmations, affirmations from my mother, affirmations from my sister, to know that as I am, I'm beautiful, and there are different kinds of beauty, and I don't need to aspire to a standard of beauty that is not my own.
That's beautifully said. And speaking about your sisters and your family, you have, first of all, just for the record, Eposi is my former employer's first daughter. Okay, and my former employers are ELTA, which are the #1 travel agency or travel management company in Cameroon.
Yes,
okay.
ELTA.
Yes. So you have this wonderful relationship with your sisters. How have you been able to maintain such a wonderful bond, over time with your sisters? Because not everybody has the opportunity to enjoy the kind of bond or the love that you all share.
Yeah. That has a lot to do with our parents. We have really amazing parents. Um, our dad and our mom are imperfect people. I definitely want to mention my parents are not perfect human beings. They're human beings and therefore flawed, just like I am, just like you are, just like everyone is. But I think, from before we were born, they really wanted to build an environment of love. And they constantly remind us that it is so important for us to stick together and take care of each other and love each other and support each other. That is something that they prioritize over everything. My dad and my mom take their work very seriously. My father specifically is, a bit of a workaholic, but everything comes to a grinding halt when it comes to family. Comes to a stop. And he addresses it, and then he continues with what he needs to do. And my mom, the same. Sometimes she'll just, I need to focus on my kids, or I need to do, and we've been through a lot as a family together. And I think it was, dealing with a lot of those things and getting through them together that probably helped that bond get stronger. Because when you experience hardship, the people you experience it with, you tend to get closer to. I think that has a lot to do with us, understanding that we really do need to take care of each other because we are our own support system in that way. And I think that that's what family units really are. They're micro support systems to help or to encourage people to grow or to support people in a time where the growth is not necessarily happening above the soil. As you're building your roots, you need your family to be your nutrition and your rain and your water as you grow in the dark. I definitely don't want to also claim that it is solely that has contributed to that. There's a level of blessing. You don't choose who your family is. You don't choose who your parents are. So I definitely want to make it a point to address that I'm, through no work or effort of my own, I was also just really blessed with my siblings and my parents.
That is truly amazing. I would like to end with this family, on the note of this family. Thank you so much, Eposi, for being who you are and just being an inspiration, not only to me but to many other women out there. And I pray that may God really bless the works of your hands, because you're doing a great thing for humanity's sake. May God really bless you and bless your family abundantly. So thank you so much for joining me on today's conversation.
Oh, my pleasure. It's been my absolute pleasure to join you, and you look stunning yourself. And
thank you.
I hope that your daughter just really continues to see you and the amazing work that you are doing and be inspired by it. And I hope that it's etched in her memory, so that by the time she's an adult, she won't, part from those ways as well. And it's a blessing to feel like you may have helped anybody feel encouraged in any small, tiny little way that you can. So it means the entire world to me. And I am often inspired by other Cameroonian women out there doing their thing. So I'm really proud of you with what you are doing.
Thank you.
It is an absolute privilege, to be able to sit here and speak with you. You're so professional with everything, so gorgeous. Like everything is, you've really planned well, and all these, I'm floored, and I'm just grateful to even have an opportunity to sit here with you and have a conversation. So thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Hey guys, if you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, and if you want to continue seeing content like this, make sure you subscribe, and do not forget to hit the bell icon just right below so you do not miss an update from PBB. Thank you so much guys, and we'll see you in the next one. Ciao!